Let me take you back 16 months ago. I had no credit score, no idea how any of this worked, and no idea that a single decision, getting my first credit card, would change my life forever. Since then, I've flown my entire family across the country for free. I've booked first-class flights, stayed in hotels I never thought I could afford, and taken trips to Texas, South Carolina, Philadelphia, and even booked a trip to Puerto Rico later this year. I've earned over $700 in cash back and have not paid a single cent in interest. I didn't come from money, I didn't have connections, I just studied and learned how to play the credit card game correctly. This isn't about getting rich, it's about using the same systems that the rich already use. Because once you understand credit cards, they stop being debt traps and start to become tools. Tools to fly first class instead of economy, tools to take your dream trip without even touching your savings, tools to grow your business, protect your cash, and earn money back by just living your life. But no one is going to teach you this. Not your school, not your bank, and definitely not your credit card company. And in this full guide, I'm going to take everything that I've learned and compact it into one video. So whether you're starting from scratch or you just want to level up your credit card game, this video is going to change the way that you view credit cards forever. So let's start right at the beginning. The total US credit card debt reached $1.2 trillion at the end of 2024. That is the highest it's ever been since the Fed started tracking in 1999. The average household credit card debt has reached $10,848. And all those things that I mentioned at the beginning of this video, the cashback, the lounge access, the free travel, it means nothing if you can't do these two simple things: pay your credit card balance in full and on time. The 3x or 5% back that you earn on your credit card is never going to beat a 30% interest rate if you're carrying a balance. And even if you don't understand what that means, it's okay, I'll explain it. But that is the golden rule of credit cards. It is the protein to a bodybuilder. It is the Bible to a priest. It is a hog to a hog rider. Pay your balance off on time and in full. So if you're anything like me, you've probably heard your whole life about how dangerous credit cards are. You might have seen your parents, friends, family get into credit card debt and tell you to never get a credit card because it's going to ruin your financial future and maybe even your life. And you've probably seen that narrative pushed by people like Dave Ramsey, who say things like, there is no good reason to have a credit card. Credit is an I love debt score. There's no positive side of credit card use. Even if you pay your bill off on time and in full, you're not beating the system. And that is quite simply a lie. That is good advice for people that don't have any financial discipline or good habits. I look at credit cards like marriage, okay? So most marriages end in divorce. You already know that, but just because 60% of marriages end in divorce doesn't mean that you should completely avoid marriage. You look at the failed marriages and do the opposite to try to keep your own marriage healthy. But luckily with credit cards, you don't have to go through all the complexities of learning how to make a marriage work. All you have to do is pay your credit card balance on time and in full. But there's still two prerequisites I have before you get or start using your credit cards. If you're young like me, or if you're a little bit older, the word budget probably sounds like a fun killer. In my mind, it meant saying no to going out with friends and just doing all the fun, exciting things that I like doing in my everyday life that cost money. You're going to naturally stop blowing money on all the dumb things that don't add to your life, and you're suddenly going to have more money for the things that you actually care about. Budgeting and then dieting pretty much worked the exact same for me. So I've been lifting weights for about 3 years now, but about a year and a half, 2 years into it, my physique just completely stagnated. I wasn't making any progress in the gym. I would kind of keep a diet, but I'd keep it in my head. I'd track the calories and protein. And it wasn't until I actually got my MyFitnessPal and started tracking everything that I ate and knew exactly how many calories I ate and how much protein I was getting in, did I get out of my rut and start making progress again. And after I started tracking my food, I knew exactly what I was putting in my body. I got to see my goals in a visual format, and I honestly didn't want to feel the shame of having to go and enter in that I just ate 2,000 calories worth of pizza. And it's the exact same thing with budget and your money. After you start tracking your income and expenses, you'll get that dopamine rush knowing that you set a goal and then you accomplished it. To budget, I use the app Copilot. I put all my different credit cards in there, and then it automatically categorizes all my expenses. And if it doesn't do it correctly, I can just go in and adjust a few things, but that makes it very easy for me. It's very low maintenance. But if you're newer to budgeting, you're probably going to need a more hands-on approach. A quote from one of my favorite books, Atomic Habits, says, "Environment is the invisible hand that shapes behavior." So if you have trouble sticking with a budget, make sure it's in your environment. Whether that is an Excel spreadsheet that is the only thing on your computer desktop, whether that is a physical paper taped to your wall or fridge, or a big whiteboard that hangs on your wall, make sure you're looking at it every day so that you pay more attention to it. Play around with the different budgeting methods, try an Excel template, try apps, try a physical piece of paper. At the end of the day, the best budget is the one that you can actually stick to. My second prerequisite before you get or use credit cards is make sure you have an emergency fund. The biggest mistake that I see credit card users, or credit card abusers more like it, is viewing or opening up a credit card as an emergency fund. Not having an emergency fund is an emergency. So when life inevitably throws a curveball, you lose your job, your car breaks down, you or a loved one gets sick, you're not going to have to resort to using your credit cards and paying 30% interest to finance that expense. That way you have your safety net, it gives you peace of mind, and you're able to use your credit card as a tool for opportunity and not a crutch in case something goes wrong. Add up all your minimum expenses, try to get enough money to last you 6 months of emergency. And don't just have all your money sitting in a checking account. Open up a high yield savings account. That way your money is working for you and inflation is not eating it away. My favorite is SoFi, but American Express, Capital One, and then Discover are all very good options as well. So here's how a credit card works in the simplest terms. Every time you swipe the card at a store, online, wherever, you're using the bank's money. At the end of the month, the credit card company will send you a bill and it shows how much money you borrowed from the bank or spent on your credit card that month. That is called the statement balance. Now here's the key. If you use your credit card like a debit card and you pay back all that money by the payment due date, you don't pay any interest and you pretty much borrow that money for free. And if you have a good credit card like the ones that I'm going to show you later in this video, they also give you rewards for using them. And that is how you win the credit card game. Also, at the end of each month, the bank tells the credit bureaus, those are the companies that keep track of all your credit information, how you're doing. There's 3 major credit bureaus: Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. You can think of these like school in the way that they track all your grades. So let's say that you want to open up a new credit card or loan. The bank is going to contact one of those credit bureaus and get a copy of your report to see if your score is high enough for them to approve you. It's kind of like if you're applying for a college, those colleges are going to get your transcripts from your high school and see if your grades are high enough to accept you into the university. If you're using the credit card and paying it off on time, that's a good thing and your score is going to go up over time. Your credit score is pretty much your financial reputation. Not only is it going to play a huge factor on how good of credit cards you can get approved for, it can also help you get approved for things like a car, a new apartment, or even a house someday. I made another full hour-long guide that you guys can watch after this one on credit score, but the basics of it is that if you pay your credit card on time and in full, it's going to go up over time. Now I want to show you exactly how to pay your credit card off. First term that you're going to want to know is your due date. After you get your credit card, they're going to give you a due date. A pro tip is after you have it for a month or so, call them up and ask them to have it move to the first of every month. That way, if someday you're juggling multiple credit cards, or even if you're not, it just makes your finances a lot simpler knowing that it's due on the first. But this is when your credit card is due every month. And if you pay your credit card balance on or before this date, you're not going to have to pay any interest. I'll show you this in a second, but usually when you go to pay your credit card bill, you get 2 different options. To pay the full statement balance, that's what you want to pay. And if you pay that, you're not going to pay any interest, or to make the minimum payment. A lot of people, so many people fall into the trap of just making the minimum payment. If you only pay the minimum balance, whatever is left over in your statement balance, you're going to pay interest on, and that is going to cost you a lot of money. Only making the minimum payment is like putting a band-aid on a broken arm. It doesn't really fix anything, and it's going to cost you a lot more in the long run. The last thing that you need to know about paying off your credit card is what APR is. That stands for annual percentage rate, and this is how much the bank is going to charge you if you don't pay your balance off in full. Usually it's between 20 and 30%, which is huge. Just to give you an example, if you were to carry a $1,000 balance at 25% APR, you're going to have to pay over $200 in interest, and you're getting nothing in return for that. So let me show you exactly how to pay off your credit card. This is inside my Chase app for the Prime Visa. At the top right, you'll see my current balance is $824.10. That's how much I've spent so far this month, and that number changes every time I swipe the card. Now look right below that, it says I've scheduled an automatic payment for June 2nd, 2025. That's my due date, and that's when I'll need to pay the statement balance off, so I don't have to pay any interest. Next, you'll see 2 important numbers. The minimum payment due is $35. That's the bare minimum that I have to pay to avoid any late fees. But the more important number is the statement balance, which is $828.10. That's the full amount I spent last month, and that number, the statement balance, is what I always pay each month to avoid paying any interest, and so that I'm only getting rewards for my credit cards. And also down at the bottom, you'll see that I have automatic payments turned on. That way the money automatically comes out of my account, and I'm never going to miss a payment or pay any interest. So now that you know exactly how to use a credit card, and more importantly, how to use it responsibly, we can start getting into the fun stuff. And now I can teach you about the fundamentals of credit card points, and then cash back. If you've ever watched anything on TV ever, you've probably seen commercials by Discover saying, earn 5% back, or Amex talking about their membership rewards points. But what exactly are these rewards? How do they work? And how do I turn them into free cash back or free flights or travel? And that's exactly what this section's about. And you're probably wondering, what's up with all these rewards? You never get something for nothing. So how are the banks giving me all this? What's the catch? So every single time you swipe your credit card, the credit card company charges the store something called an interchange fee. This is between usually 1.5% and 3%. So let's say you bought something for $100 and you paid with your credit card. The store would only keep $97, but the credit card company would keep $3. And that's how the credit card companies are able to make money and give you rewards even if you don't carry a balance or pay any interest. And since they're making money every time that you swipe their card, they're willing to give you a small percentage, which you get in the form of cash back or travel points or miles. So there are really two different kinds of credit cards. There are cash back credit cards, and then there are point credit cards. So let's start with cash back credit cards and if they're right for you or not. Cashback credit cards are the most simple kind. They give you between 1% and 5%, and they're a simple, easy way to save money without thinking too hard. Plus, they generally don't come with an annual fee. But unfortunately, they usually have lower sign-up bonuses, and the rewards that you earn are capped in value. So let's say that you had a credit card that's giving you 5% cash back and you spend $100. That's going to be $5 in cash back no matter how you split it. So that means that you can't take that $5 and turn it into a $200 flight, or take 3x back from a credit card and turn it into triple the value by transferring it out to an airline. 2% back is 2% back, 5% back is 5% back, period. It's predictable, which is great, but you're also limited on how far your rewards can go. With travel credit cards that earn points, that same $500 in rewards could be turned into flights worth over $1,000 of value, or a stay at a 5-star hotel if you know how to use your points right. So with cashback credit cards, there's pretty much 3 different kind of cards. The first is called a catch-all card. That gives you 2% back on every single one of your purchases. My favorite is the City Double Cash. That gives you 2% back on everything. 1% when you make the purchase, and then 1% when you pay it off. That card also gives you a $200 sign-up bonus after $1,500 spent within 6 months. There's no caps, special categories you have to track, or gimmicks. It's just a simple flat rate card. There are a number of these 2% back cards. There is the Wells Fargo Active Cash, the PNC Bank Cash Unlimited, the Fidelity card, but they all pretty much act the same. Next are credit cards that give you 3% back in only a specific category. So this is going to be a card like the Bank of America Customized Cash Rewards card that allows you to choose one 3% back category, whether that is gas or EV charging, online shopping, dining, travel, drugstore, or home improvement, or a card like the Blue Cash Everyday from Amex, which gives you 3% back at US supermarkets up to $6,000 a year, gas stations, and US online retail purchases. For the most part, I never recommend anyone opens up a 3% cashback credit card, because there's always going to be a credit card that earns 5% back in that same category, or a travel card that gives you 3 points, but those points are much more valuable than the cash back. So for the most part, we can just disregard those cards. Then the last category, and the best category, is cashback cards that give you 5% on specific categories. Generally, these cards give you 5% in a single category, whether that's gas, grocery, dining, or more obscure categories like gym memberships or clothing stores. I'll show you some examples of those in a minute. So if you don't care about what I talk about in the rest of this video, and you just want a couple of good 5% cashback credit cards, that is completely fine and a good strategy in its own right. So here's a couple of my favorite cashback credit cards that you can never go wrong with. The first is the Citi Custom Cash. This is a 0 annual fee card that gives you a $200 sign-up bonus after you spend $1,500 within 6 months. But most importantly, it gives you 5% back in your top spending category up to $500 each month. On everything else, or anything over that $500 limit, you'll only get 1% back. The eligible 5% categories include restaurants, gas stations, grocery stores, select travel, select transit, streaming services, fitness clubs, drugstores, home improvement stores, and live entertainment. A reason why I love this card is because it'll give you 5% back on gas, dining, or groceries, and there's no categories you have to activate. It can also pair well with other travel cards, but I'll talk about that later in the video. The only downsides of the Citi Custom Cash is that $500 in spend only applies to one category, so you can really only use this card for one specific thing. and $500 in spend in a specific category, especially if it's something like groceries or dining that you might be spending a lot of money in. But if you're a low spender like me, that's not an issue. A lot of people just use it as their dedicated gas card to earn 5% back on that every month. Another great credit card to add, even if you do like to travel, is the Amazon Prime Visa. This is one of the first cards that I added to my wallet, and the reason why is because it gives you 5% back on Amazon, Amazon Fresh, Whole Foods Market, and Chase Travel. It also gives you 2% back on restaurants, gas stations, local transit and commuting, and then 1% back on everything else, as well as a $150 Amazon gift card as soon as you're approved. It also has no annual fee, but you do have to be an Amazon Prime member to be able to get 5% back. If not, you'll only get 3% back. This is a great credit card to open up and just have sitting in your sock drawer because it's always going to be giving you that 5% back on Amazon. And if you don't want to pay for Amazon for a couple months for some reason, it'll just go down to 3%. And then whenever you decide to pay for Amazon again, it'll go back up to 5%. This card also has no rewards cap, so you can put hundreds of thousands of dollars of spend on Amazon. Wouldn't recommend that, but if you do, you're still going to be earning 5% back on that. Another great cashback credit card is the US Bank Cash Plus. You get to choose two 5% back categories, and you'll earn that 5% back up to $2,000 of spend each month. You also get another 2% back category, which you can choose from gas stations, grocery stores, or restaurants. And then you get 1% back on everything else. It also gives you a $200 sign-up bonus after you spend $1,000 within the first 90 days. And the 5% cashback categories you can choose from includes TV, internet and streaming services, home utilities, ground transportation, clothing stores, cell phone service, electronic stores, gym/fitness centers, fast food, sporting goods stores, department stores, furniture stores, or movie theaters. The only problem with this card is that you have to go into the app and choose two categories to earn 5% back on each month. And it doesn't have a 5% back category for gas, dining, or groceries. It only has a 2% category for that, but this is a great card to put your gym membership, utilities, or TV and internet on. The next credit card, and this is the best one by far for low spenders, is the US Bank Kroger World Elite MasterCard. This will give you 5% back in every single one of your mobile wallet purchases up to $3,000 a year. So that means every single time that you whip out your iPhone or Samsung and then tap, that's 5% back right there. Even if you check out at some random website online and use Apple Pay to do that, you'll earn 5% back on that as well. This card only gives you a $100 sign-up bonus, and that spend cap is a little bit low. But if you can max that out every year, that's pretty much a free $150 of rewards. This credit card definitely isn't going to be a workhorse in your wallet, but you can use it for all those miscellaneous things or up until you hit that $3,000 of mobile wallet spend. But a credit card that absolutely will be a workhorse in your wallet is one of the AAA credit cards. There are two of these, and no, you don't have to be a AAA member to get them. There's the Daily Advantage and then Travel Advantage. They both give you a $100 sign-up bonus. The Travel Advantage gives you 5% back on gas stations and then 3% back on groceries and restaurants. And then the Daily Advantage gives you 5% back on groceries and then 3% back on wholesale clubs, gas and EV charging, as well as streaming and pharmacies. So if you don't want to worry about travel credit cards, the strategy that I recommend to most people is get the AAA Daily Advantage for that 5% back on groceries and then that 3% back on dining. Get the City Custom Cash for 5% back on gas. Then get the Kroger card for all your miscellaneous spend. Or if you're spending well over that $3,000 limit, you could also get a flat 2% card like the City Double Cash that I already talked about. And then if you want more 5% back categories, you can add other 5% back cards like the Amazon Prime Visa or the US Bank Cash Plus. However, cashback credit cards are like a screwdriver. They're easy to use, they get the job done, but travel credit cards are like a power drill. Once you know how to use it, it's infinitely more powerful. The main thing that separates travel or points cards from cashback cards is the ability to do something called transferring out your points. That means that you can send your credit card points to a hotel or an airline for more value. Each different issuer like Amex, Capital One, Citi, or Chase have their own set of transfer partners. But just to give you a real life example so you understand it better, let's say that you had 50,000 Chase points. If you wanted to, you could redeem those 50,000 Chase points for $500 worth of cash back, but you could also use one of those transfer partners I talked about a second ago. One of Chase's is United Airlines, so you could send those 50,000 points over to United and book a round trip flight to Europe that would normally cost you $1,000. It's the same 50,000 points, but you got double the value just because you transferred them over. Another example is, let's say you had Amex points and you wanted to take a vacation. You could redeem those 50,000 Amex points for maybe $300 of cashback or gift cards. But you could also transfer those points out to, let's say, Hilton and book a beachfront resort that would normally cost you $1,000 plus. Think of it like this. If you were to go to an arcade Cashback cards are like spending your points right at the counter and getting a toy worth exactly what you put in. Using a travel credit card and using transfer partners is like using a secret trade-in method that allows you to get a PS5 instead of a plastic slinky. It takes more effort and planning, but the rewards have the potential to be way bigger. So when you earn points with a credit card, 50,000 points, 100,000 points, it's easy to get caught up in the numbers, but the question is, how much are those points actually worth? That's where CPP comes in. That stands for cents per point. And that's how we figure out the value that we're getting for those points. The formula is very simple. You take the value of the reward divided by the number of points used, and you get your cents per point. For example, if you use 50,000 points to book a flight that would normally cost $750, that is 750 divided by 50,000. That would be 1.5 cents per point, or 1.5 CPP. So that brings us to the question, what is a good cent per point? A lot of people here on YouTube and on the internet will tell you that a higher cent per point, the better, but that is simply not true. That is one of the biggest myths in the credit card game. Your cent per point is going to swing massively depending on what kind of travel you're booking, and a lower cent per point does not always mean a worse redemption. If you are booking domestic economy flights, which is mainly what I book, you are going to get a lower cent per point. I'm happy with anything over 1.3 cents per point. You're usually going to get 1.3 to 1.6 cents per point. I'm usually happy with anything over 1.3 cents per point for domestic economy flights, but I aim for over 1.5 cents per point. If you're transferring out your points to book one of those flights, let's say a round trip from LA to Miami, you're typically going to get around that 1.3 to 1.6 cents per point. Now, sure, you're not going to get the same cents per point if you're flying first class to Japan, but that is still a win. Let's say you have a flight and you have the option to pay $320 straight out of your wallet, or use 24,000 points. 320 divided by 24,000 points is 1.33 cents per point. And the bottom line is, if it's getting you where you want to go for free and you're getting over 1.3 cents per point, you're doing good. Don't let the hoarding, maximizing every point crowd make you feel bad for taking a trip that you want to take. Now, let's say you want to book international economy. You're usually going to be getting around 1.5 to 1.8 cents per point. So if you're taking a little bit longer economy flight, let's say you're flying to the US, to Europe, or Asia, you're going to get a little bit higher value for your points. For example, a $900 flight to Paris for 50,000 points would be 1.8 cents per point. That again isn't a crazy redemption, but it's way better than paying out of pocket, and that's still saving you a ton of money. However, business and first class flights are where you're going to see the highest cent per point. Let's say a round trip business class flight to Tokyo would usually cost you $5,000. You could book that with probably 100,000 points, and that would be 5 cents per point. Now you're using the same amount of points that you probably pay for a couple round trip domestic economy flights, except now you're flying in lie flat seats with champagne. My final thoughts on cent per point is that if you're booking a domestic economy flight at 1.5 cents per point, that's a win. That is saving you money. But at the same time, if you want to take a luxury international flight where you're getting over 5 cents per point, that's a win too. But at the end of the day, it comes down to not forcing yourself to be the kind of traveler that you're not. If I have 100,000 credit card points, I personally would rather take 3 or 4 round trip economy flights than one super luxurious first class flight. And the thing is, both of those options are very good. Just find out what kind of traveler you are and how you want to use your points, and don't let people online bully you into being a traveler that you're not by bragging about how high cent per point they got on their redemption. Always do the math, cash price divided by points. You get your cent per point, and then decide if that's worth it for you. If that all seemed overwhelming to you, that's okay, because in this next section, I'm going to tell you which credit card setup is right for you and how to get approved for those cards. And then after that, I will tell you step by step exactly how to redeem your credit card points. So there's really 4 major credit card issuers that offer points cards. There is Citi, Amex, Chase, and then Capital One. There's other credit card issuers, but they all offer cash back instead of points. On that side, you have banks like Bank of America, Discover, US Bank, Barclays, Synchrony, PNC, USAA, and then some credit unions like Navy Fed and then Penn Fed. Now, some of these banks have cards like US Bank and then Navy Federal does it, where they have a cashback card, but they say it earns in points. For example, Navy Federal's flagship credit card says it gives you 2 points on every purchase, but because those points that it's earning aren't transferable and you can only redeem them as cashback at 1 cent per point, they're really just cashback credit cards branded as travel credit cards. On the flip side of that, there are some cashback cards from Citi, Chase, and then Capital One that are branded as cashback cards, but actually earn travel points. Now, I know that's a little bit backwards, and I'll go more in detail about that when I talk about the different setups. Also, if you're looking at credit cards, you'll see that some are Visa and some are MasterCard. They're just the payment network that processes your transaction. The actual bank like Capital One or Chase that you get your card from are the ones that are setting your credit limit, rewards, all that good stuff. Visa and MasterCard are accepted pretty much anywhere. Amex and Discover are actually special because they handle all of their payments as well as their credit cards in-house, but they are sometimes not accepted if you go internationally. At the end of the day, the payment network that your card uses doesn't really matter. I just thought I'd clear that up in case some people were confused about that. Now I want to go over what I believe to be the best credit card strategy for 99% of people out there. First, you're going to build your core setup. That's going to be a combination of cards from the same issuer. These cards all earn the same kind of points and work together so you can stack rewards, combine points, and overall just boost your value. These are what are often called duo or trifecta setups. And really the three that are only worth looking at is the Citi Trifecta, the Chase Trifecta, and then the Capital One Duo. Wells Fargo also actually has credit cards that earn transferable points, but because they're more of a shady bank and they only have like 7 transfer partners at this time, for the most part, we're going to ignore all those cards. Once you've picked and then built your core setup, you can then add supporting cards around it that fit well to your lifestyle. So for example, let's say you get one of those trifectas and duos, but you spend a lot of money on Amazon like I do, you can add the Amazon Prime Visa and get a 5% back at every single one of your purchases there. Or let's say that you like to stay at Hyatt like I do, you could get the World of Hyatt credit card that has a $95 annual fee, but every single year gives you a free room there. That stacks well with my other credit cards. And because I can easily get a room up to $300 of value, that is going to pay for the annual fee every year. These kind of cards work alongside your trifecta, not against it. And they usually specialize in one thing and help you rack up more value in your everyday life. So let's start with the first credit card setup, and that is going to be the Chase Trifecta. If you're newer to credit cards, transferring out your points, and want a very beginner-friendly setup with easy points to use, this is a setup that I always find myself recommending. This setup includes 3 cards from Chase that all earn Chase Ultimate Rewards points. You can use them to book things through Chase's travel portal, but where it really shines is if you transfer into somewhere like Southwest, United, or Hyatt to get really good value. So the first card that you're going to want to have in this setup is the Chase Sapphire Preferred. This is the heart and soul of the setup. It's the engine that makes all the little gears turn and this whole thing work. The Chase Sapphire Preferred comes with a $95 annual fee, but if you use the statement credit, it's much lower than that. Every year they give you $50 free towards a hotel stay when you book it through Chase's travel portal. Chase's travel portal is just pretty much their version of Expedia or Priceline. It's super easy to use, and that brings the real cost of the Chase Sapphire Preferred to $45. On top of that, you also get a 60,000 point sign-up bonus after spending $5,000 in 3 months. Good travel protections. As far as the rewards you're earning, it's going to give you 5 points on travel booked through Chase's travel portal, 3 points on dining, 3 points on streaming services, 3 points on online groceries, 2 points on all other travel, and then 1 point on everything else. But to be honest, we're not actually getting this card for the earning categories. The real reason that we're getting this card is because it allows us to take the other 2 cashback cards from Chase and use the cashback from those cards and then transfer them out to Chase's travel partners. So pretty much this card is just the key that unlocks the evolutions to the other 2 cards that we're going to talk about. And also if you use your points to book through Chase's travel portal, which again is just their version of Expedia or Priceline, you get an automatic 1.25 cents per point. And if you were paying attention during the cent per point section, that is not bad if you're booking economy domestic flights. It's a little bit on the lower end, but you're still getting okay value and it's better than paying cash. The next card that we're going to add to our setup, and this is going to be the workhorse, this is a card that we're pretty much going to be doing all our swiping on, is the Chase Freedom Unlimited. It gives you 3 points back on dining, 3 points on drugstores, and then the biggest one is 1.5 on everything else. Now that 1.5 might not sound like a big deal, but again, now that we already have the Chase Sapphire Preferred, we can use the cashback as points and transfer them out or use it in the travel portal. And if you're transferring to somewhere like Hyatt where you're pretty consistently getting 2 cents per point, it's like getting 3% back on every single one of your purchases. This card also gives you a $200 sign-up bonus after you spend $500 in 3 months, but remember that's actually 20,000 Chase Ultimate Rewards points. So you're going to be able to use this card for dining, drugstore, and really any other purchase that you don't have another card for because it's giving you that 1.5% back on everything. All right, so the last card that we're going to add in this trifecta is called the Chase Freedom Flex. This is almost identical to the Chase Freedom Unlimited. It earns that 3 points on dining and then 3 points on drugstores, but instead of 1.5% back on everything, it's actually going to give you 5% back in rotating categories. So every 3 months, you're going to get a new category that you're earning 5% back in. That might be something like gas one category, groceries the next, and then maybe Amazon or dining or something. But again, because we have the Sapphire card, these are earning Chase points. And if we can redeem at 2 cents per point, it's like we're getting 10% back on those rotating categories. I always compare the Freedom Flex to Taysom Hill if you watch football. It's not going to be useful on every single play, but when you can use it, it's going to get you a ton of yards. So now you have the full Chase Trifecta unlocked. You have the Chase Sapphire Preferred, which unlocks the Chase Travel Portal, transfer partners, and gives you bonus points on travel, online groceries, and streaming, as well as some decent travel protections and no foreign transaction fee. You then have the Freedom Unlimited that you can use for your dining or drugstore purchases. Use this for anything that doesn't fall into a bonus category because it's still going to give you 1.5% back on everything. Then you have the Freedom Flex for those rotating 5% categories. So this is one of the best setups out there. And as great as this setup is, there are a couple gaps that you need to know about. The two biggest is that there are no elevated categories for gas or groceries. The Freedom Flex will give you those one category a year, but for 3 categories out of the year, you're just going to be out in the water for those. Also, all 3 of these cards give you 3x in dining, which really isn't necessary if we're being honest at all. There is one really good card that fixes a lot of the holes in the setup, and that is the Daily Advantage from AAA. I already covered this card early in the video when I was talking about cashback cards. This is the one that gives you 5% back on groceries and then 3% back in gas and electric vehicle charging, wholesale clubs, streaming services, pharmacy, and then AAA purchases. But what this card does very well is give us 5% back on groceries and then 3% back on gas, which are the 2 major holds I just identified in the Chase Trifecta. This doesn't earn Chase Ultimate Rewards points, but just earning straight cashback to support this setup is still very good as well. You could even just stop with the 3 Chase cards and use the Freedom Unlimited for those, but there are 2 more cards that I think really just help bring the Chase Trifecta to the next level. The next is the World of Hyatt credit card. I've already mentioned it several times in this video, but one of the ways that Chase shines is it transfers directly to Hyatt. And like I've already mentioned, this World of Hyatt card gives you a free night every single year with only a $95 annual fee. So you can easily book a property $150 to $300 and then combine that with your Chase points. So let's say that I wanted to stay in Hawaii for 5 days. I could book 4 of those nights with my Chase points and then the 5th night free with my World of Hyatt credit card. So they really just complement each other well. The next card that also complements this, and really any other card, if you're a renter and you see yourself renting for the next couple years, I'm begging you, just add this card. It is one of the best credit cards on the market, and that is the Bilt MasterCard. It gives you 1 point per dollar spent on rent, and it doesn't charge you a transaction fee. But Bilt has the best transfer partners. They also transfer to Hyatt. So if you're a Hyatt fanboy, definitely go with the Chase setup that I'm talking about today and add these 2 cards, because you have your Hyatt card giving you a free night every year, and then you can just take your Chase and then Bilt points and then send them to the same Hyatt account. You do have to make 5 transactions per month to earn points with the Bilt card, but just use it for dining because it also gives you 3x on dining, or just, use it for random small purchases like coffee or something. But we can't talk about Chase cards without talking about the Chase 524 rule. This is a rule where if you've opened up more than 5 cards within the last 2 years, Chase will automatically deny your application. So yes, even if you have an 850 credit score, you've never missed a payment, and you're making $10 million a year, if you've applied for more than 5 credit cards within the last 24 months, you're going to get automatically denied. So you have to be a little bit strategic of when you get Chase cards. If you're a beginner watching this, you probably haven't opened up that many credit cards within the last 2 years and you'll be fine. But just keep that in mind if you're wanting to get these Chase cards, and make sure you're under that 524. So just a quick recap of why the Chase Trifecta is so good. All 3 cards are earning Ultimate Rewards points. The Chase Sapphire Preferred lets you combine those points. And then if you want to add some supporting cards or patch some weak spots in the setup, you can add the AAA Daily Advantage, Bilt MasterCard, and World of Hyatt card. Now, if Chase is the smooth, easy to use setup that everyone starts with, Citi is the slightly more advanced setup, but you're going to earn a ton of more points with it, and it could be better for you if you're willing to put in the work. The Citi Trifecta works almost identically to the Chase Trifecta. You get the Citi Strata Premier, which unlocks Citi's transfer partners and allows you to take the cash back from Citi's cards and turn them into travel points so you can transfer them out. So let's talk about the first card, the Citi Strata Premier. It's going to give you 10 points back on hotels, car rentals, and attractions booked through Citi, and then 3 points on air travel, hotels, restaurants, supermarkets, gas stations, and then 1 point back on everything else. I've said this is one of the best credit cards for the last 2 years. It's the only card that I can think of that gives you 3 points back on dining, gas, and groceries, which are usually your biggest spend categories. This card also comes with a $95 annual fee, but if you can book a consecutive hotel stay for over $500, you get a $100 statement credit, so this card pays you $5 to hold it. So let's say I went to Georgia for 4 days, I could book a hotel for $125 a day and get that statement credit, or maybe I'm only taking a 2-day trip, but I want to book a really nice hotel for $250, just as long as the hotel stay is in a row. The City Strata Premier also gives you a 60,000 point sign-up bonus after spending $4,000 within 3 months, which is at the very least going to be worth $600. Now that you have this card, you can add those cashback cards from Citi and use the cashback as travel. So I've actually already talked about these two cards and I've listed them as some of the best cashback credit cards on their own. So the fact that we can use them for travel with the City Strata Premier makes this setup pretty OP. First is the Citi Custom Cash. We've already covered this one. This is Citi's version of the Freedom Flex, but instead of them choosing your categories every quarter, it's automatically going to give you 5% back on your top spend category. Like I already mentioned, this card gives you a bunch of different 5% categories. It's only going to earn in one of them up to $500, but it gives you some really big ones like grocery, gas, or dining. And if you're able to get 2 cents per point, that's like getting 10% back on those categories. The last card that you're going to want to add to this trifecta is the Citi Double Cash. This earns 2% back on every single one of your purchases and gives you that same $200 sign-up bonus, which is actually given to you in 20,000 Citi thank you points when you spend $1,500 within 6 months. So the way that this setup works is you use your Strata Premier for travel, groceries, gas, and then dining. But whatever you spend the most in under $500, you'd use your custom cash for, and then your double cash will give you a flat 2% on everything else. Citi doesn't have Hyatt as a transfer partner, but they also have amazing transfer partners if you're booking international flights. And you can also get some great redemptions with Alliance flights, which I'll talk about in a minute. They also have JetBlue as a transfer partner, so you can get some great domestic redemptions with those. And you're getting consistent 5x categories with the custom cash without having to go to another ecosystem or cashback cards. You can even get multiple custom cashes by product changing other Citi cards. So if you're able to get that statement credit, you're willing to put a little bit more work into transferring out your points. The Citi Trifecta can outperform the Chase Trifecta in the long run.
Citi also just announced that they will be releasing the new Strata card later this year, which is a no annual fee version of the Strata Premier card. That gives you 5 points on hotels, car rentals, and attractions booked through Citi Travel, 3 points on supermarkets, transit, and EV charging, and then a 3-point category that you can choose between fitness clubs, streaming services, live entertainment, and then you get 2 points on restaurants and 1 point on everything else. So if you choose this card over the Strata Premier, the Citi Trifecta is also going to be the best no annual fee setup out there.
The last setup that I'm going to talk about today is called the Capital One Duo. If you travel internationally and you want simplicity, this is the credit card setup for you. There's 2 cards that make up this setup. The first is the Venture X, and then the second card is the Saver card. Capital One doesn't shy away from charging an annual fee. For their Venture X, it is $395, but this card actually pays you $5 a year to hold it. So the first card, the Capital One Venture X, this is the one that comes with the $395 annual fee, is the best premium travel credit card on the market. To offset that $395 annual fee, it gives you a $300 travel credit. So when you book through Capital One's travel portal, that is again just their version of Expedia or Priceline. You get a $300 credit every single year, and that is automatically applied. I just got my Capital One Venture X, and I've already used that credit. I booked a flight for $310, and it only charged me $10 because that statement credit was immediately applied. It also gives you 10,000 anniversary miles every single year. Even if you only value those 10,000 anniversary miles at 1 cent per point, that is $100 worth of value. So if you add that with the $300 travel credit, that is $400. This card only has a $395 annual fee. It's paying you at least $5 to hold it. But in addition to that, it gives you some great benefits. It gives you Hertz presidential status. So if you rent a car through Hertz, you're going to get upgrades and be able to skip the line. You also get TSA pre-check or global entry, so you can get through airport security way quicker. It also gives you 75,000 miles after spending $4,000 within 3 months. And it gives you lounge access. I haven't really talked about premium travel credit cards or lounges a lot in this video, but for the most part, lounges are very, very overrated. And other premium travel credit cards like the Sapphire Reserve or the Amex Platinum, you have to pay for those lounges in the form of annual fee. But I love how this is just icing on the cake and you don't have to pay for it. Again, this card is paying you to hold it. For earnings, it gives you 5 points on flights when you book it through Capital One, 10 points on hotels and rental cars, again, booked through Capital One's travel portal. And the biggest thing is an unlimited 2 miles back on every single one of your purchases. That is huge right there. This card already gives you access to Capital One's transfer partners, and you don't really need to add any other cards. If anyone ever tells me they just want one credit card in their wallet, the Venture X is always the card that I'm telling them to get because it's giving you that 2 miles on everything. If you can get 1.5 cents per point, that's like getting 3% back on every single one of your purchases. You don't need to get the Sapphire Preferred and then the Freedom Unlimited and then combine those. Pretty much everything that you need is in this one card. But if you want to take this setup to the next level with only one more card added, you can get the Capital One Saver card. And this is a cashback card, but it works the exact same as the Citi and then the Chase cashback cards. Because we have the Venture X, we can take that cash back and then use it to transfer out to transfer partners. The Saver gives you an uncapped 3% back on dining, groceries, entertainment, popular streaming service, and then 1% back on everything else. So what most people do is they put their dining and then groceries on the Saver card and then everything else on the Venture X. And then you have a very, very good setup going there. You really don't need to add any other cards. Of course, you can add other cashback cards like the US Bank Cash Plus or the Amazon Prime Visa, but this setup is all about simplicity and value. The Saver also comes with a $200 sign-up bonus after you spend $500 within 3 months, which of course converts to 20,000 Capital One miles. And by the way, I use miles and points interchangeably when talking about Capital One's cards. They just call them miles for some reason. But the huge thing with this setup is, of course, you're getting that 2x back on everything. You can transfer them out. If you can redeem those points at 1.5 cents per point, it's like getting an uncapped 4.5% back on your dining, groceries, and entertainment. But if you can get 2 cents per point, which there's a good chance you are because most people that like Capital One travel internationally, it's like getting an uncapped 6% back on those categories. So like I already mentioned, where Capital One shines is international travel. If you want a simple setup, only 2 cards, and you travel internationally for the most part, this is going to be the setup for you. I have the Venture X. I love it. I also love Capital One just as a bank in general. I like their checking and savings account. They have these Capital One cafes that you get 50% off on if you have one of their cards that are pretty nice. And Capital One handles their lounges very well if you do happen to have a layover in one of the cities where they have one of their lounges at. You can get some good redemptions for domestic travel, and I'll show you how to do that in the next section, but there are a few downsides to Capital One's cards. Number one is sometimes they're a little bit harder to get approved for, especially with the Venture X. They're very sensitive to total revolving accounts, so if you already have more than 8 credit cards, it's going to be very hard to get approved for the Venture X. So the Capital One cards are cards that you're going to want to get earlier in your credit card journey rather than later because you're most likely going to lock yourself out of them. Also, they tend to hard pull all 3 of your credit bureaus opposed to other credit cards that usually only hard pull 1, which can be a downside because if you risk it and you're not approved for this card, you could be left with 3 hard pulls, but people overplay how much hard pulls are going to do your credit. Your score is going to go back up to normal after like 2 or 3 months, and they'll be off of your account totally after 2 years. I applied and got approved for the Venture X when I had like 15 hard pulls on each of my 3 credit bureaus. But if you value simplicity, you travel internationally, and you want some of those premium travel benefits, go with the Capital One Duo. However, if you want to earn a lot of points, you can go with the Citi Trifecta. And if you want a very beginner-friendly setup, you love Hyatt, and you travel domestically through Southwest, United, or JetBlue, you could also go with Chase. If you know a little bit about credit cards, you're probably wondering, why haven't I talked about American Express cards yet? And the truth is that American Express cards are in a pretty sad state right now. Their annual fees are so high, their statement credits aren't very good. There are a couple use cases with them, and they have a very, very good business card, but I don't recommend for the majority of people having American Express cards in your core setup unless you really know what you're getting into. Also, you might be wondering why I haven't talked about airline or hotel cards besides that one Hyatt card, and that's because for most people, it's better to focus on cards with flexible point currencies, meaning you can use them in different ways. Hotel and then airline credit cards have their place, but they're really only worth it if you're very, very loyal to that specific airline or hotel. For the majority of people, cards from Chase are going to be a lot better than the actual hotel or airline credit cards. If you're loyal to Southwest or United, you're probably going to think it makes sense to get one of those cards and just put all of your spend on it, but that's actually not true. If you look at the Chase Sapphire Preferred, for example, that's going to give you 2x on all travel and then 3x on dining and online grocery, while the United card only gives you 2x on United and then 2x on dining and then hotels booked directly with hotels. And of course, you can add the Freedom cards I talked about, and you're going to earn way more points on everyday purchases, and they transfer 1-to-1 to United, so you can just take those same points, from Chase and then just send them over to United or Southwest. So unless you're trying to get something like the Companion Pass or Chase Status and all that stuff, which I'm not covering in this video, just go with the flexible points currency. Also, to get approved for most of the cards that I'm talking about, you're going to want a 700 plus credit score. You can download Experian or Credit Karma, and that'll give you a good idea of where your credit score is sitting. But if your credit is shot or you haven't built up credit at all, you're probably going to need a starter card before getting into any of these points or mile cards that I'm talking about. If you're sold on the Chase ecosystem, you can go with the Chase Freedom Rise. All you have to do is open up a checking account with Chase, and then you can go ahead and be approved for that card, and that will automatically turn into the Chase Freedom Unlimited later down the line. But you could also start with a secured card, and there's 0% chance, no matter how bad your credit is, that you'll get denied for a secured credit card. A secured card is basically training wheels for credit cards. You're going to put down a security deposit, usually between $200 and $500, and then that becomes your credit limit. After a year or so, if you've use your card responsibly, that bank is going to give you that money back and then upgrade you to a non-secured card, usually give you a higher credit limit. And by that time, you're going to be able to apply for the travel cards I'm talking about. My favorite secured card is the US Bank Cash Plus. We've already talked about this card. This is the one that allows you to choose 2 5% back categories. And like I said, that's a card that you can just put your gym membership on or utilities and is going to constantly give you value. Okay, so for this section of the video, I want to talk about something that I've touched on a lot in this video, and that is credit card welcome offers or sign-up bonuses. Obviously, these credit card companies and banks want your business. So to make their cards more appealing, they say, hey, if you sign up for our card and spend a certain amount of money on it within a certain amount of time, we're going to give you these points, cashback, or miles. And some of these bonuses are absolutely massive. On cards like the Amex Platinum, I've seen welcome offers all the way up to 175,000 points. That can be worth up to $3,000 or more in travel. Now, early in this video, I talked about building a good, strong core setup and then adding cards around that, and I still stand by that. You don't need to get 15 different cards and constantly chasing sign-up bonuses to win the credit card game. But if you want to unlock millions of points and miles, fly first class all the time, stay in 5-star hotels, you're going to need to hit a couple of these welcome offers. You could swipe your card for a year with just your normal spend and maybe earn 20, 30,000 points on it, depending on what kind of spender you are. Or you could get a card like the Venture X and spend $4,000 within 3 months and get 75,000 miles right there. Now, this doesn't mean to go and open up every single credit card under the sun. These spend bonuses only work if you are paying your credit card on time and in full. A lot of people that don't have money saved up will go out, get a bunch of cards, and then think they have to hit the sign-up bonuses on them, and then they put themselves in debt. That's kind of what these credit card companies are banking on. Here's how I think most people should go out and get welcome offers. First, of course, you build your core setup, you add your supporting cards to it, and that right there is going to give you 100, 200,000 points. And then of course you're going to garden with those cards. So that might last you a while. But let's say you have some crazy travel plans or you have a major life event. Let's say you're going on a honeymoon or a big family vacation and you want to fly out your kids or your wife or whoever for free. You can strategically open up a card for its welcome offer so it makes that trip free. For example, let's say I know that I'm going to get married in 8 months and have a honeymoon. I can get a card like the Amex Platinum with a massive welcome offer so that I can stay in an amazing hotel and fly first class with my future wife. Not because I want to randomly open up a new credit card, but because I want to make that honeymoon free. And because I already have my core set up, building me a super strong credit score, I can downgrade or cancel that card whenever I want or after I'm done with it. Now I want to give you some strategies for hitting welcome offers, because if you're a low spender like me, spending $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 within a couple months might not be something that you normally do. Now, of course, only do this if you're treating your credit card like a debit card and you can pay it off on time and in full. So while you're working on your new credit card's welcome offer, you're going to forget your core setup and put all your spend on this card to be able to hit that. So let's say I have the Capital One Duo. Instead of putting my dining or groceries on my saver card, I would temporarily put it on the Amex Platinum until I hit that welcome offer. The reason why is because it's basically giving you 10, 20, 30x back if you're doing it right. Let's say you're trying to earn 75,000 points after you spend $4,000. That's nearly 19 points per dollar spent up until you hit that bonus. And there's no other card that can touch that. So first and foremost, use it for your everyday spending, even categories that your core setup would normally cover. But if your normal spend doesn't hit that offer, what you want to do is take money that you know that you're already going to spend in the next 6 months and just put it on this card. One of my favorite things to do is prepay my car or health insurance onto my credit card, because that's something that I'm going to have to pay for within the next 6 months anyways, and there's no fee for doing that. So I might as well pay the premium off, put all that spend on my card, and then I don't have to worry about paying that insurance bill for the next 6 months. You can also split big expenses with groups. This is something that I do to just earn credit card points anyways. So let's say that I'm going out to dinner with friends, I can just have them put the whole bill on my card and then Zelle or Venmo me. The way that I hit my sign-up bonus on the Venture X and then the Sapphire Reserve is my brother is having a wedding in a different state, and I have a massive family, so literally my uncles, my cousins, for some reason they just called me up or whatever, and they're like, hey, do you want me to put the Airbnb on your credit card or my flights or whatever? And I was like, yeah, sure. So I got a couple $1,000s of spend on that card, and they just immediately Zelled me for it, and it was great. One thing that I see a lot of people do that are more advanced players in the credit card game is pay their taxes on a credit card. Let's say that I owe $4,000 in taxes. Now that usually has a 1.85% transaction fee, but let's say I'm working on the welcome offer for the Venture X. I'm already earning 2 miles anyways. If I value that at 2 cents per point, that's like earning 4% cash back. So that already nulls out the transaction fee. But even if we forget about the base points that our card's earning, that $4,000 at a 1.85 transaction fee would be $74. And even if we're just eating that $74, we're able to get that 75,000 mile sign-up bonus. And then if we factor in the 2 miles back per dollar spend, that's an extra 8,000 miles. So we're getting 83,000 miles by putting that $4,000 of spend on our credit card for tax. Some people will even put their rent on their credit card. Usually that's like a 3% transaction fee, besides that Build MasterCard, of course. But they're okay doing that because, like the example I just gave you, it's just a small haircut off the top of the sign-up bonus that you're getting. Now, what I don't recommend people do is something called manufacturer spend. That's where you start getting into the shady stuff. That's where people try to get like prepaid debit cards and put a bunch of money on there just to like turn it into cash and hit their bonuses. But that will get you in trouble. The banks will shut down your account. It's not worth it, guys. Just use one of the methods that I told you, because that's fair game, but just don't try to do the whole manufactured spend thing. That'll most likely get you in trouble. It's just not worth the risk. Also, a lot of times credit cards will have elevated offers. So for example, something like the Chase Sapphire Preferred, which usually gives you 60,000 points, will bump their offer up for a couple weeks to 100,000 points. Cashback credit cards even do this. For example, the Amazon Prime Visa, usually around Prime Day and stuff, will give you $200 as a bonus instead of $100. Amex cards usually have very, very high sign-up bonuses. If you use things like Incognito or go through Rakuten, or sometimes even referral links, you can get really high points. I've seen the Amex Gold with 100,000 points, the Amex Platinum with 175,000 points. But if you want to go from Amex bonus, there's two things that you need to know. One, with their charge cards, which is the green, the gold, and then the platinum. There's a ladder kind of thing going on. So if you get the platinum sign-up bonus first, that's going to cut you out of the gold and then the green. So what you usually want to do is get the green, the gold, and then the platinum. Also, the Amex sign-up bonuses are only once per lifetime, opposed to some other cards like the Sapphire or the City Strata Premier. You can hit that every 4 years, I believe. But with Amex cards, you want to make sure that you're really getting a good welcome offer with them. A lot of YouTubers will make best welcome offer videos every month. So if you're looking for an elevated offer, you can always just search up one of those videos. Also, if you've made it this far in the video, I truly appreciate it. And there's a good chance that you like the way I talk and explain things. So it would really help me out if you just liked this video and subscribed, and also considered sharing it with someone if you've gotten value and you think someone that you know could also get value from this video. I also have pretty big plans for this channel going forward. Hopefully you can tell by the production quality and effort that I'm putting into this video, but it really helps me out if you're considering adding any of the Chase cards, the Capital One cards, or any of the other products I've talked about, like SoFi even. I have links in my description, and when you guys sign up using my links, it really helps me out so I can keep making these free videos for you guys. So even if in the future you decide you want to get one of these cards, and if you use those links, it really helps me out. Okay, so this next section, I feel like the whole video has been leading up to it, I believe is going to be the most valuable part, because I'm not just going to tell you how to redeem your credit card points, I'm actually going to show you step by step how to do it. If you're anything like the younger version of me, you've heard all the YouTubers say, transfer out your points, and I got the travel credit cards, but I didn't know how to do it. I knew the concept of it, but I didn't know where to send them. The whole thing was overwhelming, and I didn't really have a full guide to walk me through it like the one that I'm about to give you. So I'm going to show you where to transfer them, how to find the flights. First, let me tell you, using credit card points and miles is kind of like jujitsu. If you've ever trained it, you know that people will literally train it for 30 years, and there's always more small things to learn. It's a craft that you can pretty much always get better at. And that's how the world of points and miles work. There's all these little tricks and specific things and just loopholes in the system that you can do to get max value. But for the purpose of this video, I'm going to show you your basic attacks. I'm going to show you your arm bar, your rear naked choke, your triangle choke, so that you can get started. And as you start doing it for yourself, you'll get more savvy and learn the other stuff. I just want to show you 20% of the things that are going to get you 80% of the results. So there's pretty much 3 ways to redeem your credit card card points. If you have a travel credit card, you're never going to want to redeem for cashback, gift cards, charity, or any of that stuff. If you have the Chase cards, you can book through the travel portal. You don't want to do that with any of the other cards because you only get usually 1 cent per point or less. But what you're going to want to do is send your points directly to the hotel or airline, or use something called award flights with Alliance programs. And I'll show you how to do both of those. And also, a piece of advice that I want to give you is get to know your credit card ecosystem. For example, I am recording this on an FX30. That's a Sony camera. I switched over from Canon, which is what I previously used. But when I started using Sony, I had to get to know the camera. I had to get to know the settings, the different, all the little things that go into it, because that's what's really going to allow you to get to the next level and get those really cinematic shots. And that's the same with your credit cards. Let's say you know your city, you're going to want to know all the different transfer partners, how to use JetBlue, what the points are worth, how to use the award flights that I'm going to talk about in a minute. So I guess what I'm trying to say is after you know the basics, you can learn to master your points currencies and get to know all the different transfer partners and whatnot. Okay, so I want to start with Chase. I'm inside of my Chase account right now. This is my reserve. You can see that I have a little bit over 70,000 points. And if you go up to travel, you can go to book travel. This is going to take you to their travel portal. I've talked about this a little bit. This is how you get that automatic 1.5 cents per point. So let's say I just get a Delta flight. You can see that it's $10 or 20,000 points. And that's the same that the Sapphire Preferred works. The Reserve is giving me a 50% boost, but the Sapphire Preferred works the same way, where you can just go straight through their portal, pick something, and then it'll give you that automatic 1.25 cents per point. Now, if you go ahead and click transfer to partners, that is going to go and show you all their different travel partners. You can see sometimes they have boosts on the transfers. But yeah, they're all listed here: Southwest, United, Virgin, JetBlue. But what I'm going to be showing you guys for Chase at least is Hyatt. Okay, so what I'm going to do is go to Hyatt's website. They have a really good one. You'll see here. I'm staying in Arizona actually tomorrow, so I actually do have to really go and book this right now. Go ahead and enter in my dates, use points, find hotels. And then after I hit search, it'll show me what it is per night usually and how many points I need to book. So you can see this one, 45,000 points, over 2 cents per point. This one, I'm not going to book that one just because that is not that good of a redemption. It's just over 1 cent per point, but this one is good. It's a cheap room. I'm only going to be staying in it for like a night, and I'm getting over 2 cents per point. So now I know what room I want to stay in. I know how many points I have to transfer to Hyatt. So I'm going to go back to Chase, go press on Hyatt, scroll down and press transfer points, and that is going to ask me for my member number. So now I'm going to go over to Hyatt and make an account. And I put in all my information, and then this is my dashboard after I make an account. You can see that my member number is in the left. I've been a member since 2017. And now that I have that number, I can copy it, go back to Chase and paste it in here. That is going to link my account. And now I can just enter in 5,000 points, and just like that, I hit the submit button. It'll show me my new balance, and bam, 5,000 points has left Chase and now entered into my Hyatt account. Okay, so now I go over here, I can press on the room that I want, and it says that usually it takes a couple business days, but most of the time it's instant. You can see that I already have that 5,000 points. I can just go select the bed that I want. I guess I'll get the one with the sofa. That looks kind of cool. Processing your request. And just like that, man, just like that, I transferred my points from Chase to Hyatt, got over 2 cents per point, got a nice room, saving myself some money. So I'm happy about that. And that is pretty much the way that transferring your points out are going to work. You find the hotel or flight that you want to book, you find your cent per point, see if it's worth it, and then you create an account with that airline or hotel if you haven't already. Get your member number or whatever it is, Delta calls it Sky Miles number, and then you go back to your bank, put that number in, and then transfer out your points. Then you can go ahead and book it. I'll also show you another example. I'll use American Express points and I'll use them to book a Delta flight. So I'm going to actually link up with Anthony Venture, if you know who that is. Shout out Anthony Venture, in June. So I just go ahead, I put in the dates, the 23rd, put in my airport, and then I can search. This is going to show me all the nearby airports as well. And Delta is really easy to book. It's going to show me all the nearby places, all the nearby airports, and to see if there's potentially a better deal. So there's really two that I found here. They're both for 8,900 points. And I will book this one right here. I can just go ahead and put select. So now I have the flight that I want. I know how many points, just under 9,000. I can go over to American Express. As you guys can see here, I have over 40,000 points. Just in 2025, I earned almost 200,000. So shout out me, I guess. So go to transfer out points. and then Delta. I already have that linked, but if you don't already, create that Delta account, get your member number, and then you can put that in. I already have points sitting in Delta, but I will transfer out 1,000 because that's a minimum just for you guys, just for the sake of content. But usually there is a fee when booking these two. It's pretty small. This one is just, 60 cents to send that transfer over. There wasn't a fee for Hyatt, which is cool, but Amex does. And then after that, they verify my info, and those points are going to be in my Delta account. I had 23,000 before, now I have 24, and I can just go ahead and book that flight. Also, you can see if I was going to pay cash for this flight, it was going to be $117. It cost me $5.60 in fees. So if I subtract that from 117, divide that by 8,900 points, I get 1.25 cents per point. Now that is on the lower end. Like I said, I try to shoot for 1.5 cents per point, but this is such a cheap flight. I'm only using 9,000 miles. I'm completely fine with taking that. So there we go. Complete our purchase. You can see I got the email right after. So as you can see, transferring directly to hotels or airline, it's really easy. This stuff scared me before I knew, but hopefully by seeing me do it, you guys can see that it's not scary at all, and it's actually really easy to do. Now I want to talk about booking alliance flights. So there are pretty much 3 alliances. There is Star Alliance, SkyTeam, and Oneworld. And what these allow you to do is transfer your points to a international carrier like Qantas, Air France, or Air Canada, and allow you to book domestic travel within the US. So these airline alliances are pretty much a friend group for airlines. A bunch of airlines team up and pretty much say, hey, we'll share our routes, lounges, and miles with each other's customers. And Capital One, Amex, Chase, and then Citi all have transfer partners that are in all 3 of these alliances. That's how, if I have Capital One points, even though that Capital One doesn't directly transfer to American Airlines, Delta, or United, I can book those flights. I can book United with Star, I can book Delta with SkyTeam, and then I can book American Airlines with Oneworld. In the past, I've used my American Express points, transferred them to Qantas, which is part of Oneworld Alliance, to book American Airlines flights for pretty good redemption. The key is sometimes these flights are a little bit limited and they aren't shown directly on Google or Expedia. So you're going to want to use something called Seats.Aero. Seats.Aero is going to be your best friend when booking award flights. I'm not sponsored or affiliated with them or anything. It's just a website that I really like using. They have a free version which you can use, but I pay for the pro. It's $10 a month, and it just saves me a lot of money, and I use it like every week to look at flights. So let me walk you through this because this might sound a little bit complicated if you haven't seen it or heard of it or done it before. So I want to book my return flight back from Greenville. I'm going to go to Seats.Aero. I'm going to go ahead and select the date and then search. So this is going to pull up all the different flights that I can book. There's different filters, how many points. If I want to filter by what ecosystems I'm in, like Capital One, Chase, or Citi, that will show me the flights I can book with those. Okay. It also has the alliances that I was talking about, and then it has specific programs as well. If I had an Alaska card, I could search on here too, United as well. And also I can filter by how many points it is. Business class is about double, so I probably won't book that, even though it will give me a higher cent per point. So I'll just clear all the things and see what gives me the cheapest. It looks like it's going to be American Airlines flights, but I don't have any American Airlines points right now. So I will select Amex, and that is going to bring up Qantas. And just like I said, if you go to the flight details, you can see that even though Qantas is like a weird Australian airline, you can book American Airlines flights with them. So now what I'm going to want to do is go over to Qantas. I already made an account with them, so I have my number and stuff that I can put into Amex, but I'm going to search for that same exact flight on their website to make sure that it actually is available. Because sometimes, as good as Seats.Aero is, they don't have the exact availability. So I'll sort by price, and you can see 11,400 points. There's 3 different routes that I can take, plus $12 to $6 in fees. Now I can go to Capital One or Amex. They both transfer to Qantas, send my points over there, and then book a United Airlines flight. Now, I don't expect you to be a master or even really fully grasp how to do this, but hopefully walking you through that at least got to see how to go about it, because I had to figure all that stuff out for myself. But to use Seats.Aero, you pretty much just enter in your origin airport, your destination, the date. Then before you actually transfer your points over, go to that airline and make sure that there is actually that flight available. For this next section, I want to talk about one of the best kept secrets in the credit card game, and that is business credit cards. Most people think that business credit cards are for big businesses, but I promise you, yes, you watching this video, can get a business credit card. It is actually one of the best things that you can do. You get higher limits, usually higher sign-up bonuses, and they don't show up to your personal credit report. And to get a business credit card, you don't need to have an LLC or most of the time even an EIN. You can just go and apply with your name and your social security number. So even if you're a tutorer, if you drive Uber, if you sell or flip stuff on Etsy or Craigslist, even people that are intending to start a business can get approved for these cards. I know a lot of other YouTubers that have less than 1,000 subscribers and are not even monetized yet get approved for these business credit cards because they think they're going to make money in the future. And if you want to get into business credit cards, there are really two that you cannot go wrong with. The first is the American Express Blue Business Plus. In my opinion, this is the best credit card that American Express offers. You get 2 membership rewards points on every purchase up to $50,000 a year. And those points are very powerful. I haven't really talked about Amex points too much, but they transfer to Delta. They also have really, really good transfer partners for international travel as well. So if you can get 2 cents per point, it's like getting 4% back on every single one of your purchases. And this card doesn't come with an annual fee. So it's a lot like the Venture X that I talked about, but the points are a little bit more valuable and it doesn't report to your personal credit. Anything over $50,000 to spend per year, it'll drop to 1x, but I am personally not spending anything close to $50,000. I just use this for my business expenses, all my editing, and then thumbnails and software and whatnot. I just put on the Blue Business Plus for my YouTube. You also get 0 APR on purchases for 12 months. So that's like getting a 0 interest business loan for a whole year. Now, obviously, don't do that unless you have a plan to pay it off. And I didn't use that on my card just because I'm not in a business model where I need a lot of capital. But if you're selling stuff on Amazon or you have a Shopify store or something and you need to buy a lot of inventory to get started, you could take advantage of something like that. The only drawback is that your sign-up bonus is a little bit small. You get 15,000 points after spending $3,000 within 3 months. But as far as earning a lot of points for all your miscellaneous spend for a no annual fee business card, this is the best one out there. The other no-brainer business card is the Chase Ink Unlimited. Now, all the Chase Ink cards are very good. They give you high limits, 0 APR for a year, and 3 out of the 4 of them, you can take the cash back that you earn and use them for travel if you have one of these Sapphire cards. Of course, watch out for that Chase 524 rule. Again, that is a rule by Chase where if you've opened up more than 5 cards within the last 2 years, they'll auto decline you. But also business cards that don't report to your personal credit, like this one, won't take up a 524 slot. So these cards are a great way to keep earning bonuses while trying to stay under that 524 limit. And the Chase Ink Unlimited is pretty much the business version of the Freedom Unlimited we talked about earlier. It gives you an unlimited 1.5% back on every single one of your purchases, no categories or limits, you can just swipe and earn. It also has no annual fee, and it will give you a $750 sign-up bonus, which of course is given to you in 75,000 Chase Ultimate Rewards points after you spend $6,000 within the first 3 months. And that is the highest no annual fee sign-up bonus out there. So if you're already in the Chase ecosystem, let's say you're running the Chase Trifecta on the personal side, this is an amazing card to get if you have a business or if you just want to save one of your 524 slots and get this instead of the unlimited for your miscellaneous purchases, because you can take the points and get 2 to 3 times the value. I know business owners that get this card and put hundreds of thousands of dollars of spend through it a year, and then they travel the world for free because they have one of the Sapphire cards. So if you're already in the Chase ecosystem and you spend a lot of money, definitely get this card. But if you're not in the Chase ecosystem and you want a card that earns Amex points, go with the Blue Business Plus. The only Ink card that you might want to stay away from if you want to travel is the Ink Premier, because that only earns cashback, not ultimate rewards points like the other 3. There are also some good cashback business cards from US Bank if you're interested in that, but I would stay away from Capital One and then Discover's business cards because those report to your personal credit, meaning that your personal credit score could be affected if you have high utilization, and that can take up a 524 slot too if you're trying to get one of the Chase cards. Okay, so to close out this video, I want to talk about some common mistakes and then misconceptions with credit cards. So the first myth is to never close your credit cards. And most of the time, it's best to keep your credit cards open, especially if they're no annual fee, because they're just going to help your credit score over time. But there are definitely some legitimate reasons to close down your credit cards, and most of the time, it's not going to affect your credit very much. If there is a credit card like one of the Amex personal cards with a massive annual fee, and you can't justify it or don't want to pay it anymore, and there's no good product change option, you can go ahead and close it down. There's no reason to be losing hundreds of dollars in annual fee just to have a card aging on your credit. If you have a Credit One card, immediately close that card down. It's not worth it. That is one of the most predatory banks They make themselves look like Capital One, and they fool a lot of new people in the credit card game, but they're going to screw you over. Just get away from Credit One. If you have a card from them, you can just go ahead and close it down. Also, if you want a cleaner setup that's easier to manage and you already have a bunch of cards, it's not the end of the world if you close a couple down to simplify your financial life. But before you close it down, make sure it's not your oldest card. Closed credit cards actually stay on your credit report for a whole 10 years after and help your age of average accounts. The only thing that you might want to be aware of is your utilization. If you have a card with a really high limit and then you close it down, you're going to lose that limit on your credit report. If you want to close your card, just call the number on the back of your card. Another misconception is that you always need to be getting new cards and chasing a new sign-up bonus to win the credit card game. Last week, actually, I had one of my friends call me and he's like, hey man, what card should I add next? It's been a while since I added a card, but he already had the Chase Trifecta. He had like 12 different cards. He had, I think, over 100,000 points sitting in his account, and he wasn't really traveling. And I was like, why do you need to open up a new card? Is there a goal in mind? And he didn't really have one. He was like, no, I just watch these credit card videos and I assume I should. And I was like, hey, don't feel like you have to keep opening up points. There's no shame in just gardening or using your card spend categories to earn points. Do it when it makes sense, like you have a big trip that's coming up and you're going to need a bunch of points for that, or there's an elevated offer on a card that you've been waiting to sign up for. Now, I'm the type of credit card user that is most of the time going to be chasing a sign-up bonus because I know that I can use those points. But don't feel like you have to do that, especially if there's no reason to do that. And this ties into my next point, which is don't hoard all your points. It's okay to hold on to your points for a year or two, wait for that big trip that's coming up, but just know that credit card points depreciate just like money does. A lot of times these points are going to be devalued over time, so there's no reason for them to be sitting in your account and just collecting dust. That's one of the reasons why I also say that your cent per point doesn't matter that much. It's much better to take the trip you want to take and use your points than have them sitting there for 3 or 4 years waiting for that perfect redemption to get 3 cents, 4 cents, 5 cents per point. The next myth is that you either have to be Team Cashback or Team Travel. One of my favorite things to do is build a hybrid setup. I've already touched on that point a couple times in this video. Even if you're focused on earning travel points, that doesn't mean that every single card that you use has to earn transferable currency. In fact, one of the best ways to supercharge your setup is by adding 5% back credit cards that complement your setup. I've already talked about adding the Prime Visa for 5% back on Amazon, maybe the US Bank Cash Plus, or the AAA Daily Advantage or Custom Cash if you're running the Chase Trifecta and you want a card for groceries. My next myth is that you need a premium travel credit card to get to the next level with credit cards. I have barely even talked about premium travel credit cards, even though this is a full guide to points and miles. A lot of YouTubers, I have sometimes been guilty of this in the past too, is hyping up things like lounge access and the luxury perks that you get with a premium travel credit card. But the truth is, airport lounge access is very, very overhyped. 99% of priority lounge passes absolutely suck. Even the Satyrian and Sapphire lounges are super crowded nowadays. And a card like the Chase Sapphire Preferred, which only comes with a $95 annual fee, gives you the exact same transfer partners that the Sapphire Reserve comes with. It comes with a much, much higher annual fee. Now, I hold the Sapphire Reserve and it can be worth it, but I don't hold it because of the lounge access. The one premium travel credit card that I think is worth it for people is the Venture X. And that's because with other cards like the Platinum card, you're paying a lot of money in annual fee to get into those lounges. But with the Venture X, although it comes with that $395 annual fee, it pays for itself. Like I've already mentioned, it gives you that $300 travel credit and 10,000 anniversary miles. So the lounge access and the other premium travel benefits are really just icing on the cake. And with that, I will conclude this full guide. I hope you guys enjoyed watching it as much as I enjoyed making it. If there's anything that is still unclear, just drop it in the comments and I will make sure to answer it. Again, if you do want to apply for some of these cards, I will have links all down in the description.